20XX is the perfect indie love letter to the Mega Man X franchise, while showing its indie roots with a committed roguelite design, yet finding a way to marry both in a manner that comes across as frantic, fast-paced, and challenging each time. Taking control of 2 starting characters with ranged or melee attacks, you'll dash your way through various levels of randomized tile sets and increasing difficulty to take down 8 monster robots, optionally take on their powers, and hopefully escape the facility. What 20XX lacks in any kind of deep lore or history, it makes up for with sheer high-octane action platforming. Once you get used to it at least. Expect a bit of a learning curve and you'll be soaring through levels in no time. 20XX goes for roughly $20 on PC and Switch, barring any sales, and is more than worth the price of admission if this seems like something that would interest you. But that's not all you want to hear, is it?
This isn't a game that has so much to spoil, but fresh experiences are sometimes the best. If you want to know a lot more about this game and my personal involvement, by all means stick around and we'll get right to this.
Hey guys, it's full disclosure time! I backed this game when it was being kickstarted back in mid-2014. The trailer immediately sold me, and being pretty into the roguelike boom, with games like Binding of Isaac, Risk of Rain, and Rogue Legacy, I was more than willing to toss money at it. How much money?
Yeah, that much. And I bought each DLC and the Switch version on top of it. I don't have a problem, you have a problem.
While I don't think being a Kickstarter backer means I'm inherently going to be glowing in my attitude to anything that I backed, because I mean, if that were the case, Mighty No. 9 would have been the best reviewed game of all time due to the sheer number of generous backers in the credits. I do believe it's required to make that information known, though, so you can take my word however you like. Considering that I have spoken with the game's creator on more than a few occasions, have access to a special build version of the game to test new content before it gets released, and due to my backer level, I have an item that I designed within the game, it's still probably something I should mention. The game started its life with a very different look, but overall keeping the core design theme of Mega Man X, but it's a roguelite. The 2014 Kickstarter debuted with the game's title being Echoes of Eridu. It had a quite different art style for the characters, as well as some planned characters that never made it into the game, and tons of other features that make that page absurdly outdated now. I was worried for a good while as people were kinda considering this game a shameless Mega Man cash-in title, considering that the Kickstarter launched the campaign 7 months after Mighty No. 9. You know, back when people still thought that Mighty No. 9 was ever gonna be worth a damn. Despite that, the game succeeded by barely scraping past its initial Kickstarter goal of $20,000, and over the next few years in early access on Steam, it underwent some major changes to the item system, the progression mechanics, the character designs, and even the game's name itself, in case the title of the game being 20XX and not Echoes of Eridu didn't clue you into that.
Of course, with the name change being completely understandable, it did bring about a whole new slew of problems, with that prominent yet meme-based title also belonging to a mod of Super Smash Bros. Melee. Let's just say that they had to fight for Google supremacy for a good damned while, and still have people joining and then immediately leaving their Discord in badly researched disappointment.
The evolution of the character designs was certainly a trip, with Eridu's red goggle Nina morphing into a more Mega Man-colored large-headed chibi version that I like to refer to as the toddler stage of this game's design, gaining a more proportional frame in the next update that was very well liked and would remain her design until a very drastic update that wasn't really well received and reverted back pretty quickly.
We don't talk about the dark times.
However, the animation and movement of this redesign ended up being applied to the previous design, and that's how we have our modern current version of Nina. Anyone looking to call this design a straight-up Mega Man ripoff, well, blame us, the community. We helped make her this way. I hear and see a lot of people giving weird amounts of flack for this game's style, and I honestly don't get it. Personally, I think it's one of the cleanest and most distinctive styles for this type of game. I rarely to ever have a hard time picking out what's what, even in the visual cacophony of battle. I only ever really get muddled when screen shake starts really having a fit, and that's an adjustable and removable element of the effects, so there is no reason to complain about something that I do not have to use. Still though, the sprites seem to get the most flack, as it's often compared to looking like a Flash game. The sprites are animated by linking more or less static images on specific points, pivoting on those points and changing position and size to indicate different kinds of movement. funny enough, I've mentioned that I don't like how this technique is abused in a lot of other games, Icy most notably and recently, but that has more to do with hyper-detailed artwork being contorted in that manner, while 20XX comes across like this was always the designed intention for everything that moves.
I find it funny that it's considered such an affront to people here when few beyond me seem to complain about this technique when they used it so much in Icy. But I honestly think that this technique works here, since the art is bright, very clear, and fast-paced. It still doesn't come across as a warped mess. Like, I can tell what's happening on screen, which is a lot more than I can say for Icy's muddy, disjointed art project.
I loved this music. And again, this is another one of those situations where other people will claim it's not as good as blank because relative privation is a substitute for feedback in this failed experiment called social media. But like, are they hard of hearing or just annoyingly discerning? I'm hard-pressed to find a track in this game that I don't like, as the title theme builds to this intense crescendo, making for some damned good trailer music, and might be about 75% of the reason I was so invested in the game in the first place. Agnesort and Vaculab's themes, Firestorm and Identity Crisis respectively, I'd heard so often in betas that they don't really resonate with me as much anymore. They're still unquestionably good pieces, but they don't really hold a candle in my eyes to my regular favorite stage track, Frostor's Permafrost, and the final two stage tracks, Spark Engine and Endless Echo, with the alternate boss themes in those stages being simply amazing accompaniments to the intensity of those fights. This soundtrack helped motivate me to finish writing this damned script. It's one of the most driving forces for any sense of motivation that I have heard in a long time, and just because City Fires isn't Setsuo Yamamoto, people want to bitch about it? Get bent! No apologies.
If you're a regular in my streams, there is a pretty good chance that you've heard me playing Spark Engine already. It's that song that I use in my starting and AFK streams. I mean, sure, the Spark Engine track plays on a stage that is a complete nightmare garbage fire of bullshit platforming and enemy placement, and it goes on for way too goddamn long, even after the nerfs they made to it, but yeah, it's a good song. Seriously though, fuck level 9!
Sound work can be a bit overpowering though, as it easily drowns out the music if you have it even remotely close to the music's volume, so adjust accordingly. Not that the sound is bad, as it perfectly matches every shot, dash, hit, and explosion, while your contractor of choice will have some voice-acted grunts to go along with them. So let's get into how this game plays now. As yeah, this was obviously and purposefully done to ape the style of the Mega Man X games. The good ones. You know, before God knows what happened to that series. Specifically beyond just the jump and shoot man gameplay of the Mega Man series, being sure to include X's dashing, dash jumps, and wall climb mechanics. Among the playable characters are Nina, the X analog who fires basic full-range charge shots, and Ace, the melee-focused Zero analog with a chargeable combo-slashing sword. Both Ace and Nina have a multitude of alternate primary weapons to find, like Nina's wall-ignoring Metroid-style wave beam, 3- and 4-way shots, or a shotgun-style blast. While Ace can nab a long-range spear, a spinning glaive, a slow, powerful axe, and the Chrysogrim from Symphony of the Night. You also have access to 8 earnable boss powers that all have the ability to trivialize other boss fights, and even have a useful utility to them. For some examples, the Shade Spur is an odd weapon that fires based on your current momentum. It'll eat away at the cannon boss Perforator, but can also permanently freeze those annoying disappearing Yoku blocks. Boomerang Blade can trim down death load pretty easily, but it can also be used to pick up out-of-reach items and fire in 8 directions.
Nina and Ace are the two characters that you're going to want to use to get familiar with this game, since they operate more or less the same and they've had the longest to be balanced when starting characters, so they're really good for conquering earlier challenges. Otherwise, we've got 2 DLC characters to talk about, but that's where things get a little complicated.
If you're willing to fork over a decently priced $3 per character on Steam, you can nab Hawk and the newly released at the time of this video, Draco. Hawk is based entirely around the powers mechanic, with a few powers exclusive to her, like a rapid-fire blaster, an explosive jump, a flamethrower, and some enemy-seeking missiles. She only has one primary weapon that cannot be switched out, a Castlevania-looking energy whip, with the added mechanic of siphoning energy points from the enemies that she hits with it. However, since Hawk has special weapons of her own, and you can only carry 8 weapons, you'll have to pick and choose between her exclusive weapons and the boss's weapons. If you like using the game's various powers though, give Hawk a shot. Draco plays the Hawk's opposite, being a character focused on primary attacks and only able to carry 1 power. However, he can have 8 primary weapons equipped, including Ace and Nina's entire arsenal, while being host to his own exclusive weapons, starting with a high damage short range hammer and a boomerang. while later gaining slash claws, a double-shot bow, a slime lobber, and a bow staff. Since Draco can't charge attacks, he instead is constantly gaining and storing charges that you can use at any time by pressing up an attack, and every exclusive weapon of his has a special secondary attack when using those charges. He's definitely a fun character to play if you don't mind being locked out of most of the utilities that you would have by having access to boss's powers. Items will come in all shapes and functions too. There's stat boosting items, movement altering suit pieces complete with set bonuses, and small pets to follow and assist you in different ways.
That's a weird item name. What is that, Irish? Yeah, I'm guessing that might sound a little bit familiar to you, and originally I wanted to call it the Miniature Mechanical Orbital Grinder, but Chris told me that name was far too long, and he wasn't going to go with an abbreviation as blatant as MMO Grinder, so we compromised with Mini-Mech Orb Grinder, that was later further shortened to this. Still sounds kinda Irish to me. Oh, top of the morning, it's the Mini-Mech Grinder, boyo. It's rarely seen, liked by very few people, and considered completely useless to those that don't like it. MMO Grinder would have been the perfect name for it!
Hopping back on boss powers, bosses are interesting in this game. I mean, yeah, sure, okay, they're nearly all large version of regular enemy, but the fights are done in clever ways and their difficulty can alter completely depending on when you choose to fight them. Even wielding boss powers against them isn't always done in the traditional hit them with it for massive damage application. The best example I can give of this is how you take down the boss of Sky Temple, Kerr the Dragon. Despite being his weakness, the machine gun Vera, yes it's a Firefly reference, deal, can technically be used directly on Kerr, but you'll still notice that it does sweet FA to him directly shooting him. Instead, when Kerr uses his boss power, the large slow-moving square-shaped Quint laser, yes it's an Aqua Teen Hunger Force reference, you can shoot it with Vera to reflect it back to Kerr and then do that serious damage that you would expect. I find this kind of funny since Vera was originally Kerr's weakness because directly damaging him with it killed him before he ever got off any attacks. This is about the smartest compromise to that I can think of. Progression is simple enough. You start in a random stage to face off against a random boss at the end of that stage. Defeat that boss, choose his power or an alternative upgrade because Mortar is borderline useless, and you'll be able to choose between 3 random stages and bosses. You can choose based on boss weakness, ease of that stage, or who you're more willing to get out of the way first, as bosses and stages become much harder as the game goes on. Beat all 8 and you'll go to platforming hell in stage 9, and the enemy-laden trap-filled gauntlet of stage 10 before you face the game's final boss. Defeat that boss, escape the final area, and you win.
I love this explosion effect in the final, though. It is outright hilarious because it gives you this sense of time and urgency, and the whole thing is completely cosmetic. It can't hurt you, and it doesn't even reach you if you walk toward it.
Oh, I'm coming for you. I'm gonna get you. Oh, you paused a second? Don't worry about that. Take your time. It's a tough jump. Oh no, you fell down. Okay, I'll back up a bit. You keep at it, buddy. I believe in you.
But more than likely starting out, you'll just die, and when you die, that's it, game over, and you'll have to start the run anew. Barring some exceptions, like items that'll grant you second chances, or a choosable easy difficulty mode that'll give you a small life pool, and simpler challenges at the cost of unlocked currency rewards being far lesser. Normal mode is my preferred way to play this game, and those who hate themselves can hop into Defiant mode, where you can choose difficulty modified from as tame as having more enemies appearing, to as masochistic as having falls, lava, and spikes kill you instantly regardless of your health pool.
One interesting side mechanic of this permadeath system is the fact that you can run across your corpse in the stage that killed you. If you use it, you'll gain a power that you had from the last run. There's some disturbing implications about that, and it ties into a story that I honestly don't really understand in the slightest and isn't all that clearly defined, even in the data logs.
In fact, the story itself is one of the most drastic changes to the game, as the description on the Kickstarter doesn't even sound like it's describing the same game. Remnants of the old story are still present in 20XX, with some leftover weird boss names like Eternal Star, the fire stage having the nickname of Agnesort due to its original vision of being a warehouse-style sorting center for an Amazon analog that was run by a rogue AI. Hell, the crates in this game still have that parody Amazon logo on them.
You know, I still call the Sky Temple stage Eridu. I am not the only original backer that still does that, right?
Regardless of your success or failure in the run, whatever soul chips you've gained from the annoyingly tanky glowing enemies will be saved and usable when you return to the starting area. Here you can unlock items Crypt of the Necrodancer style, purchasing new ones that you'll have automatically for the next run, as well as a place to unlock permanent upgrades and other previously unlocked items to prepare for the next run. Start a new run and all your soul chips will be gone, but the game is kind enough to warn you if you still have some to potentially spend. Clear out the entire item pool of unlocks, and you can instead choose to erase items from appearing in the next run, allowing you to potentially force a certain suit set to spawn, remove some of the potentially negative items, or even just get rid of something that you won't find beneficial to your intended build. You'll also have access to daily and weekly speedrun and score challenges, with a solid seeded run to have your name placed on a scoreboard for some bragging rights. Some people are willing to hack their way to impossible times for fleeting temporary glory that no one will read anyway. Some people are sad. These people usually end up banned from the scoreboard afterward. Don't be a sad person. If you're not that sad, you can bring on a friend that you probably have to play in either couch co-op or even online play. Co-op fundamentally changes some of the rules of the game as well, as couch players will always have to be close to each other with the camera zooming out the further away they get from each other, and online players can go off and do whatever the hell they want. Co-op also introduces a revive mechanic, where if one player dies, the other can potentially reach a revive station and sacrifice half of their health to revive the other player. Item upgrades are automatically shared, while suits will be given to each player to choose to use or not. The currency nuts you collect are shared, but health and energy pickups aren't. You can use a certain button to send emotes to other players to mark your position or warn them about items, and in easy and normal mode you can hold down that same button to instantly teleport to your partner.
I will warn you that online co-op goes a little nutty and pretty buggy if your connection starts having issues. Just collecting some co-op footage with Mega G-Wolf on stream led to some really awkward moments after our disconnect.
Oh, hey.
We got them
Let's
tokes.
fucking go. Let's fucking go, boy. Just continuously going.
Boink.
Just continuously with all of the tokens. Oh, they're up there now!
Ooh, we broke your game again, Chris. I hope it's okay.
Oh, I think we've actually broken the thing. Hang on.
I gave a decent amount of time to the Switch version, and though it lacks the DLC characters and has a few hiccups that are already being ironed out in an upcoming patch, it still runs with the same quality as the PC version, and is a solid portable time killer.
I will say that even with a lot of the bugs that tend to pop up, they do get addressed very quickly, and the community is unquestionably on top of it, ensuring that we get the best version of the game that we can get, so do not be afraid to report something if it's acting up. There should be no surprise that 20XX gets an easy and enthusiastic go rating from me. The control and feel of the game is unquestionably Mega Man X, with that sense of speed and destruction that you can work up toward, coupled with a thrilling soundtrack, and delivering an overall exciting, feel-good package, even when the salt starts to flow. Keep playing, learn the quirks, and you'll have a fantastic time if you're clamoring for a Mega Man X clone that's designed more to keep you on your toes and coming back for more. So I hope you'll check it out for yourself and keep making the stop with me so I can gush more about these kinds of games and give them some more attention. Hope to see you on the next one.
Have you given 20XX a shot yet? Have any feedback on how you feel about the game? Do you prefer to pronounce it 20XDX? Is this the first time you've heard about it, or have you been following along since the Kickstarter or early access days on Steam? I also guess that you can do that like and subscribing thing, though it seems so weird to have to remind people to do that, but it's like the thing YouTubers do, I guess? Come watch me live on twitch.tv/chaosd1 if you're not already. Attend my I Swear I'm Still Doing Them JRPG-focused Weeaboo Wednesday streams. You can also watch me cook some evenings with my shitty laptop mic and camera, or just wonder why I go days without streaming. This show is why. You can also watch Indie Stop debut on there live on the appropriate Friday at noon Eastern, right before it goes officially live on YouTube. Remember, I am more than willing to hear suggestions for indie games that you want to see covered on the show. I have no shortage of potential titles to look at, and I'm always up for new stuff and suggestions. I might end up changing my next episode around from what I initially planned and start getting to the gym more often, but in the meantime, if you want to force my hand and hip check your way into the queue, I have my Patreon that you can choose to support the show with at tiers specific to Indie Stop and MMO Grinder, like early access to Indie Stop episodes before they go up in the Friday time slot, giving direct suggestions to me to more or less force your way into the queue, or have me make a pained attempt to pronounce your name in the credits. This episode, I would like to give another verbal thank you to my raid leader and higher supporters, Nate McPherson, Neander, Kaizme, Sonic Rose, and A. Smith. Also, I recently changed the URL to my Patreon, so it's patreon.com/chaosd1 now. Boy, do I have a lot of old videos pointing in the wrong place. Anyway, thanks for watching and supporting, and I'll see you on the next video.